Hi class, in this video I'm going to talk about web design patterns. So last week you learned about information architectures. This week I'm going to talk about web design patterns. Next week you're going to start wireframing your website. So I want to talk a little bit about the process of web design. What do you start with and where do you go from there? Well, first you want to start with establishing the purpose and the requirements for your site. In this class you'll be creating a portfolio site, so the purpose and requirements are probably pretty clear to you. The purpose obviously is for visitors to understand who you are and to want to hire you. Requirements would be things like listing your work experience and resume credentials, including information about your education, showcasing your work, things like that. After you establish the purpose and requirements of the website you want to build, you can start trying to create the information architecture. You can start making those cards, doing card sorting, and trying to get a sense of what needs to be on the site and how should it be arranged. From there, you want to start creating individual page structures. So what should each page look like? The information architecture tells you what pages you need. The next step is to figure out what those pages look like. After that, you want to choose interaction patterns, which is the theme of this video. So I'll talk about interaction patterns at great length in the rest of this presentation, but interaction patterns are commonly used solutions to presenting different kinds of information. After that, you're going to draw wireframes so that you can communicate through your drawing what you envision the page structure and patterns to be like. You can test your wireframes in usability testing. This is called paper prototyping, where you draw or print out your wireframes, you put them in front of someone, and you do a usability test just as if what they were looking at was a real website. So in week 5, you learned about usability tests. You would do that, except with the paper printout instead of a live site, and instead of people clicking on things, they would just sort of point to it, and you would manually turn the page or do whatever the website would do. So after you create the information architecture, you want to figure out the page structure. This is a helpful graphic from Ivory and McGraw that I think helps sort of explain how these things are related. The site architecture informs the page performance and page formatting, and the pages, what are they made up of? Text elements, link elements, and graphic elements. Now this is kind of interesting because when you create the site, you start with the architecture, and then you draw the pages, and then you figure out what elements go on the page and what order they go in, but the user actually experiences the site as a collection of text, links, and graphics. So they're sort of looking at it from the opposite direction. When they look at the site, they see the text, they see the links and the graphics, and that informs their vision of the site. So it's important to start with a good site architecture, develop pages from that, and then create text, link, and graphic elements in line with your concept for your site and in line with usability goals, so that the user, when they're using the site, sees the site as being helpful. You know, the text, link, and graphics that they experience make sense to them and they can use it. So just as a quick example from information architecture to site design, if you were designing the Ball State website, you would start by figuring out the architecture, about, admissions, academics. This is just one menu bar, but this is one of the main menu bars that sort of gives us a hint of the architecture. From there, you would decide what the different kinds of pages would look like. So admissions, you would figure out the structure for this. You know, are we going to have a big picture at the top? Are we going to have more navigation? If so, where? And then you determine what the individual elements look like. So here we have text element, campus life. What typeface is that? What size is it? We have a little graphic line. How thick is the line? What color is it? When is it used? You have a graphic here of a student. You know, what is the style for graphics? On the Ball State website, anytime a photo of a student is used in conjunction with a blog post or a story, they're always cut out. And you also want to look at the behavior. The elements, when you figure out what elements go on the page, you're not just thinking about what text, links, and graphics you're going to have, but what they're going to do and how that's going to be obvious to the user. So for example, with this link, learn more, it has a behavior, and that behavior is made clear to the user because it's red, it's a little bit more bold, and when you hover your mouse over it, it gets an underline underneath it. So after you create your site architecture, then you sketch the pages, and then you determine what the elements are going to look like and how they're going to behave. And when you determine what they look like, you're sort of going to aesthetics here. Links, are they underlined? What color are they? And this includes the links in your navigation menu. What about the text? What typeface is it? What size differences are available? Are headlines larger than other pieces of text? What size are the menu links? Graphics. What kind of graphics? Are we going to use photos? Are we going to use drawings? What size are they generally? Where are they located? Do we always want to put them at the top of the page? Do we sometimes want to put them at the bottom? You also want to determine what these elements do, how they behave. So links, do they have rollovers? If I put my mouse over it, does it change? If I click the link, does it open in a new window or does it open in the same window? What about text? If there's lots of it, is it in a scrolling box or do I just scroll the page down? Can I hide the text if I don't need it? Can the size be increased or decreased if I can't see it? And then the graphics, can you click on them? Can you zoom in and out on them if you want to see them larger or smaller? Are they presented in galleries or are they just individual graphics? So behaviors, how people interact with these elements. What can they do with these elements and what do these elements do when they're clicked or hovered over? How is the user able to interact with them? So going back to the list of steps, we figure out the information architecture. That helps us determine what pages we need, and then we figure out the page layouts for all the different pages that we have. When creating page layouts, you want to do what's called functional grouping. And that means you're going to put elements that are used for the same kind of thing in the same place. This helps users locate similar content, and it creates hierarchies. So you can tell users what's important and what they're going to be using a lot versus what's not important and what they don't really need to use that much. Facebook is a great example of functional grouping, and I've highlighted the functional groups of Facebook here. So you see across the top, everything that is on the blue bar is used quite a bit. You have the search bar, you have friend requests, messages, notifications. These are the things that you use a lot, and these are things over on the right that change. You get notifications over here. The first three icons, friends, messages, and notifications, they constantly change, and they'll often have numbers with the number of messages, friend requests, or notifications you need to look at. So this functional group of search and then managing your new notifications is all across the top because it's important. You use it a lot. And so it's at the top and then it has a blue bar so it stands out against the rest of the page. To the left, we have all of the controls. So this is where you can jump around to different pages. You can go to your apps. You can manage your pages, manage your apps. You can edit your profile. So anytime you want to sort of control anything on Facebook, you can pretty much do it from over here on the left. Now in the center, we have the most amount of space dedicated to the feed. So first we have the post section and then the feed that you consume. The post section is higher than the feed because it's more important. You want to be able to post at all times. The feed is very long and you scroll through it and you just keep scrolling and scrolling. So if the post were at the bottom, it would take a long time to get to it. If you're going to Facebook and you just want to post something really quickly, you want that to be really accessible and handy. So here it is at the top. And then to the right, we have alerts, upcoming birthdays, events coming up. So you can see that's its own group. So each of these groups does something different. The top, we have search, and then we have where we can manage new. Now we also can manage our account from over there, but the main part of that group, the main thing you're doing in that corner is managing new things. We have control to the left. We have post and feed in the center, and this is where hierarchy comes in. These are the largest elements because this is what you really come to Facebook to do, right? Is to post something or to see what others have posted. And then to the right, we have alerts. And if I drop Facebook out from behind it, you can see the functional groups just a little bit better. Now, I've looked at the Children's Museum website example before, but they also have functional grouping on their site, and I've marked it out. This is their visit page. If you click on visit in the menu bar, this is where you go. So you can see across the top, we have all of the buttons that navigate between sections. Now to the left, we have navigation for just this section. So when I click on visit, the navigation to the left changes, but the navigation at the top stays the same. If I were to click explore, this area would say explore and it would have all of the navigation for that section. So these are separated by space and alignment because they do different things. And that prevents confusion. And then we have ad copy, we have text and a graphic, but it's really just advertising to us and selling us on coming to the museum. Underneath that, to the left, we have all of the info that we would need, so maps and directions, hours and parking, the info we need to visit. And to the right, we have action items that are specific to this page, so you can buy tickets and you can become a member. This is the visit page, and these are two things that you can do: buy tickets and become a member. Now to the right, we also have action items, but these are separate because these action items are not page specific. They appear on every single page of the site, whereas these action items to the right only appear on the visit page. So those are separated to prevent confusion. So you can see the functional grouping is set up with hierarchy in mind. We have an advertisement telling us why we should come, info, nice and easy, to the left, action items to the right, navigation near the top. All the navigation is up close to the top, and in fact, all the navigation touches the logo, so conceptually we think about it as being sort of up and to the left. So when you come up with your page layouts, you want to start by creating functional groups. What things go together? What pieces of information do users need at the same time or right after, one piece right after the other? What kinds of things can they do on the page? And if those things are related, put them together. Then you want to determine the page elements that go inside those functional groups. So inside this functional group, for example, we have text, we have links, and we have a graphic. So within each functional group, you want to determine the page elements. Figure out the right kind of presentation, aesthetic presentation, and behavior for the elements. So elements, again, are text, links, and graphics. And what it can help to do is think about these as a problem. So here's a section. We have an ad. We want to tell people about why they should visit the museum. How do we do that? How about right here, action item, not page specific? We want people to buy tickets. How do we make that really easy for them? And then identify a commonly used solution. This is where the saying, don't reinvent the wheel, comes in. Web design has been around for a long time, and people have had the same problems. The Children's Museum is not the first website to have to put together a text and graphic ad and put together a section where people can buy tickets. This has been done millions of times over. And so there's commonly used solutions that we know work from usability tests that have been done on other sites in the past. A photo slideshow is a really good example. You probably have no problem thinking to yourself, I want to put lots of photos on my website, I should probably make a slideshow. That slideshow concept has been around for a really long time. It's really easy to implement, and you've all seen one, so you know that if you have lots of photos, you probably want a slideshow. These commonly used solutions are called interaction patterns, and they deal with presentation, so the layout of elements, as well as the behavior of elements. And they're generally compiled into libraries that are specific to different platforms. So mobile designers may use a mobile interaction pattern library. Web designers will use a web design interaction pattern library. And the different libraries account for differences in the platforms. For example, mobile phones are smaller. People are used to scrolling a lot more on mobile phones than they are with the web. Text can't be quite as big. Buttons can be difficult to press if they're small, so mobile design requires a different set of commonly used solutions than web design. And you want to make sure you employ these interaction patterns consistently across the site. So if you have a photo-heavy site and you decide that you are going to do a gallery, you need to do the same gallery every time you have a gallery. If you decide that you would rather do thumbnails in a grid, then you need to do thumbnails in a grid throughout the entire site. So you pick a pattern and you use it consistently. I want to give you Actually, I want to give you a quick overview of the 5 interaction patterns specific to website menus, just so you can see how patterns work and what the options are. So if you're thinking to yourself, I need to make a menu for my site, there's actually 5 interaction patterns that we know work that are used on lots of websites that have been tested for usability. Vertical drop-downs, horizontal drop-downs, accordions, horizontal menu bars, and vertical menu bars. And I'm going to take you to uipatterns.com, which is a pattern library mostly for web design. And I want to show you these 5 patterns. Now, UI Patterns actually only has 3 shown on their site because horizontal and vertical with non-drop downs are so simple that there's really no need to write anything about it. Those 2 types of patterns have been around for a long time and pretty much everyone knows them. So I'm going to go to, actually there's a better way to get here. Okay, so let's look at vertical drop downs. The way these pattern libraries work is people who work in web design will contribute and sort of volunteer their time to create these a lot of the times. There are some pattern libraries that have been made specifically by researchers. The author of Your Reading This Week, Wiley, he has a pattern library that he has created, for example, based on his experience in web design and testing. But UI Patterns is one that people can contribute to. And you can see people can vote it up or down just like Reddit. So if the pattern is not good, people can try to get it kicked off the site. But you'll see here a description. What's the problem? What problem are you coming across? Well, you need users to navigate among sections, but you don't have enough space to have all the sections you want. What's the solution? Vertical drop-down menu. Here's an example. Usage rules, you should use this if you have more than 2 main sections, but less than 8 to 10 in a single drop-down. The solution is explained to you. There's some sort of warnings about why you might not want to use this or why you might want to use a certain kind of vertical drop-down, rationale, and then you'll have examples so you can see what other people are doing. Let's look at horizontal. So horizontal, as you would expect, is about the same thing. Same problem, user needs to navigate among sections, but the space is limited. So here's some usage suggestions and the solution is explained. And let's look at accordion. This is like old style Amazon. Problem summary, you have too many sections, but you want the user to be able to you want the user to be able to browse through subsections. So it's a little bit of a different problem that this solves than just vertical and horizontal drop-downs. Again, we have instructions on usage, a description of the solution, rationale, and more examples so that you can see how these are commonly done. So you can see this is quite different from the vertical and horizontal drop-down. Let's go through another example. Let's imagine I am creating a website for a textbook that I wrote and I need to show multiple pricing tiers. So I want to sell the textbook for $100 and the textbook comes with a CD. But I'm willing to let you just buy the book for $70 or just buy the CD for $40. So I have 3 different pricing options for my textbook. How do I show this? When I make a page called pricing, what do I put on it? Well, I looked through the pattern library and I looked over in the shopping section because I am selling a textbook and I thought pricing table looked kind of promising. So I looked up the uses for a pricing table and I went through and I checked it against my problem and my data that I'm trying to share. So this should be used when there's only one product. Yes, that's true. I really only have one product. It's the textbook. You can get a book version or a CD version or both. Is there more than one version of the product to choose among? Yes, I have 3 versions. Do I want to provide the user with an overview of how these are different? Yes, because I don't want somebody to buy the CD and then complain that they got a CD when they really wanted a book. Do not use when the user can buy more than one product. Well, I only have the one product. It's the one textbook. If I had 2 or 3 textbooks, then this would not be appropriate. Do not use when the user can possibly decide what products he or she wishes to buy in one session and return later to conduct the actual payment. So I don't want to use this if they're going to put this in a cart somewhere. So let's look at the solution for the pricing table. Illustrates features, how features change as the price changes. I read through this. It sounds pretty much like what I want. There's some rules here, some points to consider when I design this. For example, visually separate plans by using alternate background colors. So I'm getting some information about the elements that I should use. So remember with the elements for all the page, so we break a page into its functional groups, and then within the functional group we figure out what elements we need and how to arrange them. Here's some ideas on how to do that. I need to think about what the elements look like and how they behave. And so here we have some information about what they should look like and how they should behave. So beware that users scroll down long tables. So I don't want to have a table that's really long that behaves in such a way that people have to scroll. So I get some tips on that from this library. And this is an example of what the pricing table solution looks like. So design patterns, interaction patterns exist to help you solve problems. The web is very conventions-based. People are used to interacting with websites in some very simple, common ways, as you've probably discovered as you've done your usability testing, your heuristic evaluations. People have been using websites for a long time now, and they're used to certain things. They're used to navigation bars being at the top. They're used to search bars that allow them to search the entire site. Using patterns allows you to give the user things that they're used to, things that they are going to know how to use because they've seen it before. And if they haven't seen it before, it's likely that the pattern will work because it's been used on other sites that have possibly been tested for usability. So don't reinvent the wheel. When you break your page up into your functional groups and you have to decide how you're going to present the elements and how they'll behave, look for patterns and use those.